Hello, exam aspirants. If you're tackling your international relations syllabus, you've almost certainly come across APEC. It's a huge player in the global economy, so today we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about it. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the fundamentals, then walk through its history, see who the key players are, and really get into its core functions. We'll also spend some quality time on India's relationship with APEC, and then, of course, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways you'll want to have locked in for your exams. Sound good? Let's dive in. All right, first things first. What in the world is APEC, and what does it actually do? Let's build a really solid foundation here. At its heart, APEC is all about one thing: economic cooperation. Now, it's really important to remember it's a forum, not some kind of legally binding treaty. Its whole purpose is to bring together these 21 economies that border the Pacific Ocean with one big goal in mind: promoting free and open trade. Okay, now this is a super important detail, the kind of thing that can definitely pop up in your exams. Pay attention to the jargon here. APEC is very deliberate about using the term member economies, not member countries. And this isn't just a small distinction, it's a really clever diplomatic move. It's the reason why entities that aren't technically sovereign states, like Hong Kong and Chinese Taipei, which is Taiwan, can participate. So remember, that word, economies, is absolutely key. So, how did this whole thing even start? Let's trace its history to see how APEC grew into the powerhouse organization that it is today. This timeline really shows you the key growth spurts. It all kicked off in 1989, an idea from the Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke. Then, just a few years later, in '93, it got a massive boost when the US hosted the very first leaders' meeting. In '94, they set their big, ambitious Bogor Goals. And by 1996, they wisely brought the business community into the conversation by creating the APEC Business Advisory Council, or ABAC. The Bogor Goals. This was a classic exam topic. This was the moment APEC said, okay, let's put a deadline on this vision. And notice the two-tiered timeline, 2010 for the industrialized economies and 2020 for the developing ones. It was a practical way of acknowledging that everyone was starting from a different place. And hey, here's a little memory hack for you. To remember what the Bogor Goals were all about, just use the name itself as a mnemonic. Think BOGOR, Big Open Goals of the Region. A simple little trick to help you lock that in. So who exactly makes up this economic club, and how is the whole thing organized? Let's take a closer look. Just lock this number in your head, 21. APEC is a forum of 21 member economies. It's a simple fact, but a really fundamental one. And this table gives you a sense of the sheer economic firepower we're talking about. You've got the founding members from '89, like the US, Japan, and Australia, but then look at the major additions later on, like China in '91 and Russia in '98. I mean, the combined economic weight here is just immense. As for the structure, it's actually pretty straightforward. You've got the Secretariat in Singapore. Think of it as the central nervous system, coordinating everything. And then, as we mentioned before, you have the APEC Business Advisory Council, or ABAC. This is the crucial link to the private sector. It makes sure that whatever the leaders are talking about is actually grounded in what businesses on the ground need. Okay, so beyond all the big meetings, what does APEC actually do, on a practical level? And what's its grand vision for the future? Well, one of APEC's most important jobs is simply making it easier to do business across the Asia-Pacific. And we're not just talking about high-level ideas. This is about really practical stuff. Things like cutting transaction costs and making trade systems more transparent. And a perfect real-world example is the APEC Business Travel Card. It lets business people get streamlined, visa-free access across member economies. Super useful. And here we have it, APEC's ultimate goal, the FTAP. That's the Free Trade Area of the Asia-Pacific. This is the big, long-term dream, to create one massive free trade zone that covers all 21 members. The whole idea is to get rid of what people call the noodle bowl problem, where you have dozens of confusing, overlapping trade deals. This chart does a great job of showing you where the FTAIP fits into the bigger picture. You've got these major trade agreements already in the region, right? Like the RCEP and the CPTPP. Well, the FTAIP is the grand vision that would, ideally, bring all of these different pathways together into one huge integrated trade bloc. Okay, let's bring this home now. For us, this is probably the most important part. Where does India stand with APEC? This is a topic that comes up again and again in strategic affairs. This is probably the #1 question we get. And honestly, understanding the answer is really critical, not just for exams, but for understanding the geopolitics of the region. It's a mix of geography, economics, and diplomacy. So, the main roadblock has always been geography. It's a bit of a technicality, but an important one. While India has a lot of strong support from members like the US and Australia, the one thing it doesn't have is a Pacific Ocean coastline. On top of that, for a long time, APEC just wasn't accepting any new members. But the key thing to remember now is that in 2011, India was invited to become an observer, which was a really significant step. All right, let's pull all of this together into a high-yield summary. Think of this as your quick and dirty revision guide for exam day. Okay, rapid fire. Let's lock in these key facts. APEC, 21 member economies. Founded 1989, thanks to Australian PM Bob Hawke. Headquarters, Singapore. The key jargon to remember, member economies. First big leaders meeting was in 1993. And of course, the Bogor Goals from 1994. And don't forget our mnemonic, big open goals of the region. And continuing our summary, the APEC was formed in 1996 to get that business perspective. APEC's core job is business facilitation. Its big future dream is the FTAPP. And what about India? Remember, not a member, but it's been an observer since 2011. These are the terms you want right at your fingertips.
So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. As global trade keeps changing, how is APEC itself going to have to adapt? And could new creative ways of cooperating open up for important economies like India, even without that full membership? That's really the big strategic question for the future.
We really hope this deep dive into APEC was helpful for your prep. If you found it useful, please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe for more explainers on all the topics that matter. Thanks for watching and all the very best with your studies.